What is going on, good people? Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well out there. Now, I just wanted to hop on really quick and chat with y'all for a second because Fuji just recently had their X Summit event a few days ago, and they announced some really dope products, including the Fuji X-M5. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk with y'all about today. Now, there seems to be some mixed feelings about this camera. Some people love it, some people hate it for various reasons, but I just wanted to hop on and offer my own perspective as a Fuji, Sony, and Ricoh shooter. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, I gotta be real with y'all. When the rumors first started swirling about the Fuji X-M5, I wasn't really that interested, to be honest. However, once I started watching the X Summit and I heard them go over all the features that they were packing into this really tiny 355 gram camera, I was sold, y'all. Now, like the Fuji X-T50, the X-M5 will have the film simulation dial, which I personally liked, and that lets me know that I can probably program in some custom recipes if I want to. In addition to that, it does have the ability to have interchangeable lenses, so all the lenses I have for my X-T50, I could use with the X-M5. The X-M5 will have a working hot shoe mount with electrical contacts for an external flash, looking at you, Lumix S9, and it has the 26 megapixel X-Trans4 sensor of the X-T4 and the XS20, and the X Processor 5 of the X-T50 and the XS20. And so I'm very confident that the photo image quality will be top notch. Now, video is really where the X-M5 is going to shine because it can do 6.2K open gate recording, it can do 4K 60, it does 10-bit video with F-Log and F-Log 2, it has built-in directional mics for capturing clean and crisp audio, it has a cool vlog mode that gives you lots of quick vlogging features, including being able to shoot portrait video all while keeping your camera in landscape mode, which may not seem super useful when you're using the camera handheld, but if you ever put your camera on a tripod, you know that kind of fidgeting with it and trying to get it right for portrait video, turning it, can be a nuisance. So being able to just mount it to a tripod, set it to that portrait vlog mode, that sounds pretty cool to me. And most importantly for me, it has the flippy screen. Now, I know I'm gonna catch some flack for this, but the flip screen for me is probably the best type of LCD screen to have on a camera, in my personal opinion. I think the only one better would be to have the dual one where it actually does the tilt and the flip around, but I understand that would probably increase the price point of the X-M5. So the fact that Fuji packed all of this awesome functionality into a camera body that is not much bigger than the Ricoh GR3, that's just amazing. But speaking of the X-M5 being in a body that's almost as compact as the GR3, that's kind of how I see the X-M5. I see the X-M5 as the replacement or the upgrade to the Ricoh GR3 or even Fuji X-70 that we've been waiting for, y'all. Now, yes, the Ricoh GR3 does have a couple of features that the X-M5 does not, namely the 3-axis stabilization and the ND filter in the Ricoh GR3. But other than that, I think the X-M5 is very similar and it has a lot of features that really go beyond the Ricoh GR3. So you have the Fujifilm simulations with the film simulation dial. Those are already built in, and there are more of them than what you would get in a Ricoh GR3. And then the ability to set custom recipes. It seems like it has 4 custom settings that you can set versus the Ricoh GR3 that only has 3. I definitely think it's gonna allow you to have more color options with the Fujifilm camera with the X-M5 than with the Ricoh GR3. Now, in addition, interchangeable lenses. Now, this is what actually is going to make the X-M5 bigger than the Ricoh GR3, is just changing out those lenses, but that is also an advantage because it gives you flexibility. Now, with the X-M5, I would probably put something like the 27mm f2.8 on it and really get it nice and compact with that pancake lens, but I can also pair it with a nice zoom. I did just pick up this 18-50 compact zoom from Sigma, and it's a very compact lens. I think it could pair nicely with the X-M5 versus that new 16-55mm that Fuji just announced. That looks nice, don't get me wrong. I think it's very pro, very nice, but I think it's gonna be too big for the X-M5. But other similarities to the Ricoh GR3 and X-M5 is no EVF. The X-M5 does have an articulating screen versus the fixed screen of the Ricoh GR3. The X-M5 I think has a little bit of a bigger battery. I'm not sure how that's gonna translate as far as battery life goes compared to the GR3. GR3 wasn't too bad for me. And the X-M5 does have more dials in order to customize and set custom settings for your photography. But then you have video, and anyone who has used a Ricoh GR3 knows it is not by any means a video camera. It has the ability to shoot video, but it's not good video. And what the X-M5 brings is definitely overkill for video in a tiny body like that. I think that's amazing. 6.2K, keep in mind, this Sony camera that I'm shooting on right now and this Sony camera I have here, neither of them shoot 6.2K, let alone open gate. And so I definitely think that is an amazing feature to put in such a tiny camera body such as the X-M5. Also, the bit rates up to 200 megabits. I think my Sony cameras just got that, where you can do up to, I think, 200, 360 at the highest, but that's pretty nice for a tiny camera. Also 4K 60, yes, there's gonna be a crop, which doesn't bother me. Shooting with an APS-C type camera, I've learned to adjust to dealing with crop sensors, getting the appropriate lenses, using the appropriate lenses with it, and so the crops are just par for the course for me. I think overall it will be a very nice upgrade to the Ricoh GR3. Now, I will say the X-M5 is not replacing my X-T50. The X-T50 is more of a photography centric camera, and that's what I like about it. I picked this up when I'm going to do some intentional photography. This and even the A7C too, I'll pick that up as well for photography. But yeah, the X-M5 is not going to replace the X-T50 for me. Now, I want to address some of the discourse that's been happening around this camera because quite honestly, I don't fully understand it. I think some of the points that are being made just kind of feel weird to me. One big thing that I've seen, or one overarching thing that I keep hearing as I watch all of these videos about the X-M5, and I did watch them all, even the ones that aren't in English. I just put on those subtitles and got to watching. But one big thing I kept seeing is that this is not a pro level camera. And to me, that's a given, right? Since when have any of the XM, XA, XE, or even X100 line of Fuji cameras ever been considered pro? The X Pro series, it's in the name. That would obviously be a pro level rangefinder camera. But any of the lines below that, I never saw those as professional cameras. So why is that a point of contention when talking about this camera? So if y'all get it, y'all please let me know down in the comments, because I just don't get it. Now the second point, and this is something I kind of already alluded to, is that the X-M5 doesn't have an EVF. I fully understand some of the disappointment around that, because as someone who's recently been using the EVF a lot with the X-T50, especially with manual focus lenses, I get it. It's super useful, especially when you really want to dial in your composition. The EVF is super useful. It kind of gets you focused because the eye cup kind of blocks out the outside world. So I get it, but at the same time, not having an EVF is not a deal breaker for me. I mean, after all, I do use the Ricoh GR3. It doesn't have an EVF. It even has a fixed LCD screen, so that makes it even harder to compose shots, and I get along just fine. I think overall, it's just a different mindset that needs to be adopted between shooting with a camera that has an EVF and shooting with a camera that doesn't have an EVF. You can still dial in focus, you can still lock in your composition. The benefit of the X-M5 is that it does have an articulating screen on the back so that you can get low angles, you can get high angles, and be still relatively good at composing your shot. Now, I do want to realize that the resolution of the X-M5 isn't much better than the Ricoh GR3. One concern that I might have about that screen is, does it get bright enough in the sun? But to be seen. Now, the last point of discourse, and this is more about Fuji overall, is that Fuji autofocus has gotten weird. It seems like with firmware updates to cameras like the X-T5, the X-H2S, the autofocus has gotten weird on Fuji cameras. And so people are starting to attribute that to the X-M5. And even in some of the videos, you know, people were pointing out the focus was hunting a little bit. But in all of those videos, they were using pre-production software. So it didn't really bother me that much, because quite honestly, the autofocus on the X-T50, it's been great for me. I don't expect it to be like a Sony camera. No, Sony, in my opinion, has the best autofocus. And so I would never expect a Fuji camera to operate at the same level as Sony, because Sony is just so far ahead of the game in my opinion. But even so, using this Fuji camera, I have learned to use the standard autofocus, I've learned to use the continuous autofocus, the single autofocus, and I've also learned to use the manual focus. And so I think that's a big point as photographers. I think we should really invest time in learning how to get our shots in focus as a skill, not as a feature. I fully understand that Fuji needs to fix their autofocus in their firmware updates, but at the same time, we as photographers, we should be able to pivot as needed. So yeah, I'm not gonna judge the X-M5 on its autofocus too early just based off of the preview videos. I'm going to wait to see for myself and see how the autofocus performs and then adjust accordingly. But with all that being said, and you've probably guessed it by now, but I did pre-order the Fuji X-M5 and I'm excited to use it, so should be coming to me in probably about a month, and so you all will get to see the unboxing, the first shoot. I'll probably compare it to the X-T50, the Ricoh GR3, maybe the A7C II. Side note, would y'all want to see a shootout between the X-T50 and A7C II? I can make it happen. Just let me know down in the comments. But yeah, I'm excited to get the X-M5 in-house, test it out, and you know, just see what it can do. But with all that said, I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. I feel like I have rambled enough and talked y'all's ear off. What do y'all think of the X-M5? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you agree with the points I made? Do you not? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. If you like this video, go ahead and give this video a like. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. And go ahead and hit that notification bell to stay informed on any future content I got coming up. But until then, y'all, I will catch all of y'all later.